last video, I demonstrated perfecting the surface using gesso with plaster. That was an antique method preparing a figurine to be gilded. This video, I want to introduce an easier method using modern materials. The materials I'm using is the BCC kwik kast sold through Freeman Supply in manufacturing. I am using the kwik kast green. The kwik kast green is a material that is used by wood pattern makers for sand casting. Kwik kast has almost no shrinkage and can be tooled, and you can add additional material to it easily. Kwik kast is a urethane that is used by wood pattern makers for sand casting because of its excellent tooling qualities. Once cured, the side effects are almost negligible. Nothing that can really build up in the system. It's almost as inert as wood. I began using the kwik kast materials clear back in 1988. An added caution, it does have cyanide derivatives, so I recommend safe handling procedures. Many people would consider me being overly precautious using this material. It is a urethane, and so it's better to err on the side of caution. So that's why I'm wearing the protective clothing. These cans are sealed, so you have to undo the seals, and it's very sticky in the bottom, so I'm using a stir stick to break up the elements in the container. These are 2-gallon containers, but the gallon containers contain only a half gallon of material. Now, I use the drill and I use a separate drill, and I keep the lids on one always closed, so that a single drip will ruin a complete container of the material. I'm using a completely different paddle from the the B is the green. Now be very careful. You mix 1 to 1, so in a separate container, that is the catalyst, the green is the catalyst, and the yellow is the resin. You see I kept the lid closed, and I'm going to pour the resin into another container, equal amount. It's 1 to 1. Now, once you mix them together, you only need a stir stick, a wood stir stick, to stir them. Now I'll pour them into this gallon container. And once you get it going, the pot life is only about 5 to 6 minutes. So now I'm going to pour the resin in. Now I've only got about 5 or 6 minutes of pot life, so you've got to work fairly quickly. Now I'm not going to worry about degassing. It's not necessary with this. When you slush a mold, you wash the bubbles off the surface. So I never need to worry about degassing with this process. Now I'll take it over to the mold. There's a silicone mold, platinum cure, which is virtually worthless, and I'm pouring it in, trying to get it into the edges and the cracks and get it in the surfaces. Now I'm going to try and slosh it. I use that slotted table because it helps me hold the mold down, and I can kind of lever it around. Now I'm going to roll it down and trying to get, on this first coat, I'm just trying to get it covered. It's going to be probably less than 3 mils thick surface cover, or maybe about 3 mils thick. It's not going to be the thickest, but we're trying to get all the detail. We're going to wash all the bubbles out. That's the purpose of rolling it around, to wash the bubbles out and get a good even surface coat the first time. Rolling it around, trying to work it up towards the edges without spilling too much material. It's inevitable you'll spill. You notice I put plastic on the floor. Makes cleanup a whole heck of a lot easier because it sticks to everything. The urethane is a tough glue. It adheres to anything. So there, I'm really working the surface. I'm looking at all what I might have missed. Of course, there are areas I've missed, so I'm going to brush it in. I'm going to try and build up the walls with a brush. I get my bristle brushes at Harbor Freight. They're a real good deal there. I get my containers, most of my containers I get at Freeman Supply, which is sells fiberglass material and paint for auto bodies. The material's thickening, so I'm trying to add it to some thin spots. Looking for thin spots. Trying to build up along the edges. I imagine we're right about 8 or 9 mil thickness, which is not terribly thick. I'm using up some of the last little bits. Notice I put a face shield on. But it tended to just start getting in the way, but when I didn't want any to splash up into my eyes. The face shield eventually falls off my head. I'm wearing a welding hat because I didn't want it in my didn't want any of that green stuff in my hair, because then I'd have to have a big haircut. Again, this is the second pour. I'm working it around, really working it around. It's really important to get that worked around. I don't know any other sculptors that use this material, but it is an amazing material. The advantages of working with this material is that once you send your work off to the foundry, you're guaranteed that they just can't mess it up, because usually foundries over-tool people's work. They put their gummy hooks into it and grind off surface details. Well, we'll perfect the surface so that it comes out exactly. The casting should come out perfect. There's so much variation in people's sculpture, they don't realize how much distortion there is. Now I'm mixing up another batch. This is the last batch. This is my last third and final coat. Actually, I think I did 4 coats. I'm sorry. So we're going to empty the cans out. Equal amount of the yellow resin. Oh. Now this is the 3rd coat. I think I do 4 coats. So this is the 3rd coat. Yeah, it's helpful because as you look and examine things, you'll probably pick up things that I neglected to say as you look through, see this. But one of the big problems that foundries have is conjecture. You hand them a piece that you work hard on, and then they grind off all the details. If you hand them a piece of perfection and they mess it up, it's their fault. Most of the time, it's your fault because you haven't given them the piece in a state that is perfected. You think it's been perfected in the clay, but I guarantee you the clay is never perfected. Never perfected. I allowed the mold to dry for several hours, and after it dried, I went in with the Great Stuff foam filler that you see there. This is the last coat I'm putting in, and after it dries, I filled it with foam, spray foam, just to reinforce the edges, anything that didn't get filled up full. There's the spray foam. I'm removing it the following day, and I'm cutting it with a Japanese saw, what they call a Japanese saw. It's a very thin, fine-toothed saw. This one I got at Lowe's, I believe. Just trim it. I can trim it later and sand it later. And taking the bolts off the mold. One thing I forgot to do with this, I really should have, is waxed the plaster so that the urethane wouldn't stick to it. But I didn't. So you see, as I'm separating it, one of the sections doesn't want to release because the urethane glued itself. And I really should have. It's that section in there. So I really struggle with that section, trying to open it up. It just won't open. You don't want to force anything with the mold. You want to work everything really slowly because you can break apart what you've done such hard work. Now, I have over $130 worth of filler material in there. I don't want to screw it up. So that would cost me $130 to fix if I'm just going to pull that off very gently as if it was one piece, because it is right now basically one piece. There we go. Just work it out slowly. I try to leave the silicone next to the work so I don't pull off any pieces. Okay. This is a very tense moment to see if I got tons of bubbles and distortion problems with it. So this is the exciting moment. Will it come out or will it have been a failure? Oh, it looks good so far. Yeah, I think it might be good. Oh, no bubbles. See how this tin cured silicone just breaks apart? It's not good for a blanket mold. You need to be able to do a hand layup with reinforcing materials. The only way to work with the silicone tin coat. So there we go. Perfection. Absolute perfection. Now we can tool this. We can sand it, add material, add fillers to it, sand it, prime it, and we will have perfection at the end. Oh, no bubbles. Perfect. The little material around the seams, that's called flashing. That will be removed and filled. But the next video, I'll show you how to sand it and clean it up. And the video after that, I'll make a mold from this finished piece. I'll show you how to do that. Very happy with this. This came out perfectly. This also gives you a chance to repair things that weren't done correctly in the clay. Look, no bubbles, perfect surface, but you can see the lumps on the surface. Those will be taken out. The foundry will receive a wax per imperfection.